So let's talk about these shared networks
Yeah.
because, oh man, whenever a doctor is saying to me, like, what's the most difficult part of the job? If I say, are you in network? Yeah, I said, well, then managing your networks is the hardest. I don't even have to think twice. And I say to people, if you see that there's a fee that's different than what you think it should be, don't just kind of go, that's weird, and go on. Like, all full stop, pull out similar EOBs, make sure, because if you're somehow assigned a wrong fee schedule, it is a disaster to catch up on. I mean, honestly, we're talking months, spreadsheets, detailed reports, all sorts of stuff.
We make dental billing and insurance easier to understand. Subscribe to stay updated and help us grow the channel.
I know that you probably have one or two tricks you can share on how to minimize this. Now, one situation that we talked about in the pregame was a doctor wants to get out of network and does everything right. And then all of a sudden, 2 or 3 months later, they find they're right back in the network they tried to get out of. Mm-hmm. And then the other scenario, which we didn't talk about, is a doctor leaves a network because they're expecting to get picked up by another network because somebody told them, don't worry, that's in the network, you'll get picked up. And then they don't get picked up. And then they're like freaking out. Mm-hmm. So do you have advice on either of those scenarios, both of those scenarios?
Well, for people moving more fee-for-service, and I think we all know that's the big buzzword right now, is
fee-for-service.
Everybody is wanting to go fee-for-service or more fee-for-service, even if it's not completely fee-for-service. So that's the trend. And I would say, just pausing just a second before we get there, I think just for dentists who are feeling like, hey, I would love to go fee-for-service, everybody seems like they're going fee-for-service, but truly everybody's not going fee-for-service. So to kind of calm some of that a little bit, we're definitely seeing more dentists pull the trigger than ever did before. The hygiene scenario is very difficult right now. So certainly there is a lot of that. But if you feel like it seems like everybody around me is fee-for-service except me, that's not true either. So, kind of take that a little bit with a grain of salt. But
I'm so glad you said that because there's so much peer pressure out there and doctors are feeling like, well, everybody's going out and they make it sound so easy. They're not completely going out with everything. Like you said, there's mixed participation. Or I hear also from the carriers too, like as many people as going out of network, you still have huge DSOs every graduation signing up more dentists. So it's not necessarily like there's been this huge flip in the market. It's ebbing and waning all the time. Yeah. So sorry, I'm so glad you said that because I think the peer pressure is rough out there.
It is. And it's easy to feel like I'm the only one who doesn't have this figured out. And that's so not the case. I mean, it just isn't. But for offices who are trying to get out of network with a company, the key with that is you need to know the shared network piece before you drop, not after, because it's going to take you anywhere from, 30 to 90 days to get out of network with a company after you send the termination. Mm-hmm. And then if you drop out and you're thinking, okay, now I'm out, I'm done. And then a month later, you're picked back up again by somebody else. Well, now it's going to take you 30 to 60 days to unravel yourself from that shared network agreement. And just when you've done that, who knows, maybe there's another one sitting there to pick up. There's companies that we could easily have to do 5 or 6 opt-outs for.
Wow.
Practice. That's very common. So what you really want to do is you want that all mapped out before you make your decision, because you want those opt-outs to be in place before you send the termination, so that when you drop that, in theory, now again, that means everybody needs to have done what they are supposed to do with those opt-outs. So don't just send them and assume it's good. Once you send them, you need to follow up. It's a pain. I mean, there's no way around it. It's just a hassle. Yeah. But you really need to follow up and make sure you have the confirmation that those opt-outs are in place. And then that way, if that's all mapped out and you've done that all proactively, then when you go to get your termination done and you're out of network, then you should actually stay out of network. But you need to know, who does this company have shared network agreements with? And how do I opt out of those and get those done ahead of time? Because otherwise, it's a year later, and not only have you not made progress, sometimes you go backwards. Because for most companies, not all, but most companies, a direct contract will override shared network agreements. So let's say you have a company, you're just like, I'm done, I'm ready to be out. You drop that contract, and let's say they have a shared network agreement with a company that's actually an even lower paying fee schedule. Well, now you're back in network, but you're getting paid even worse than you were before. It's a very demoralizing thing when you get to that kind of situation, because now you've actually gone down in fees rather than up. So that planning ahead piece is very critical. Otherwise, you can spend a year or two just trying to get yourself out of all of these different network agreements.
If you learned something new today, subscribing is the best way to support the channel and keep learning with us.
Would you like to hear more? Follow the link for the full episode.